that consumers' attention spans are less than those of goldfish. And I mean, it seems like in the last couple of years, I've just seen this keep popping up. So I'm like, I'm going to do a little digging and see about this. Well, the thing is, there's absolutely no evidence of this whatsoever. Zero. The reference point that I keep hearing is that there was a Microsoft study. Microsoft did this study and they found that consumers' attention spans are less than those of goldfish. That study does not exist. They did not study. They did not make a comparison to goldfish. There was nothing. In fact, no one has ever studied the attention spans of goldfish. I don't even know how you would do that, but there's no study at all that has ever existed. I think what's behind this is attention. It's not that our attention spans are less or that we're incapable of attention. It's that there's more competing for our attention these days than ever before. And that what that means for us as marketers is that we have to work harder to be more relevant, more interesting, more compelling, more attractive to get their attention and then keep it. And that is very possible. If you've ever binge watched a program on Netflix, maybe it's Stranger Things, that our attention spans can last very long. In fact, all day probably. If we're interested, if we're engaged, if it's something relevant and motivating for us, our attention spans are there. It's just that there's more competing for it. And so we as marketers just have to work a bit harder. And the thing is about attention is that it is a limited and finite resource. And as people, we only have so much attention at any moment to give away. And so that's why our brains, being as efficient as they are, have created something called selective attention, where our brains automatically screen out information that we don't think is relevant. It's not something we're aware of. It happens automatically. And an activity that I like to do to showcase this is I just ask people to wiggle their toes. Just take a second to wiggle your toes. You can feel your toes. You can feel probably the inside of your shoe. Maybe your toes are cold. Maybe they're warm. But the thing is, 30 seconds ago, you weren't thinking about your toes. They were still there. All of those sensations were still there. It's just that they were not relevant in the moment. And so your brain automatically filters that out. But as soon as we bring attention to your toes, then that becomes relevant. And you're now aware of all of those things. And so that's exactly how marketing messages are, or any kind of marketing messages, packaging, commercials, anything like that, is unless it's relevant and compelling and interesting, our brains are going to screen it out. And once that happens, you've lost any opportunity to communicate and convince your shopper or your consumer to buy your product. And so we always have to be very aware of, are we being relevant? Because really, relevance is the golden ticket. Finding ways to be relevant is how you get attention and how you keep attention. We often think about disruption. Well, disruption can be a great way of attracting attention for an instant. But if our brains say, oh, that's okay, God, that's not interesting. Next, you're not keeping that attention. And so disruption can open the door. But if you want to keep that door open, you really have to find ways to be relevant and compelling to engage that consumer.